It's about culture, good vibes, and gathering around the table. Our culture is rich, our food is flavorful, and our people are friendly.
It was sitting with family again because as Caribbean people, we are one big Caribbean collective family.
When we gather around the table, we celebrate milestones.
I'm familiar with Chef Debbie and certainly some of the people that she has been able to feed.
We laugh until we cry, and we create memories that last a lifetime. Good food brings people together.
It's the season finale, and I'm super excited because this is the first time I've actually ever tasted Chef Deborah's food.
Food is love. It's comfort. It reminds us of our roots. Caribbean nations have long been celebrated for our food. The flavors are bold, the colors are vibrant, and the dishes are hearty. There's nothing quite like it because there is nothing quite like us. Welcome to the Caribbean Cookout Show. We've embarked on a captivating culinary odyssey through the vibrant and diverse worlds of Caribbean cuisine. We've met some amazing chefs, and they've opened up our appetites and introduced us to their passions and their knowledge. Well, join us one final time this season as we introduce our next guest, Chef Debbie Sedina. Chef Debbie, it's so exciting to have you here on the Caribbean Cookout Show. I mean, representing the Twin Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, of course.
So I was born premature, and I had a 48-hour window, of which if I survived, then it meant that I would be obviously okay. Clearly I survived, and if I didn't, well, that would be the end of Debbie. So my mother always tells me that I'm a true trooper and a fighter and to never give up. That has pretty much been my mantra throughout my life. You know, when challenges come, I just grind down and make it happen. My grandmother used to go outside and literally pick bush and was able to bubble something for me to drink where my stomach would be settled. Yeah. And those traditions, some of them have died out, unfortunately, but a lot of them still live on. My grandmother, we know her, well, Dolores Sardina, but her nickname would be Granny Mama or Sweet Finger Mama, because she had a way of cooking food that would make you lick those fingers. So Sweet Finger Mama. And she reached out to my parents, who were both going to school, and said, send her home. So I went straight to Tobago. My grandmother lived at a place called the Old Donkey Cart, and I stayed there for a good maybe 2 years with her and my grandpa, and just kind of, you know, and literally a couple of months I was born and I was on a plane to Tobago.
So, you know, we're all about showcasing the diversity of the Caribbean, of course, and I think Trinidad has a beautiful showcase. I mean, you have the African influence, you have the Indian influence, but there's an evolution still happening.
Yes, there is, and there's also layers of, for example, we have an Asian Chinese influence that is a part of the culture. Yeah. We have the Syrian Lebanese influence that's part of the culture. We still have the British, and we have Venezuelans that are coming in and creating another layer. Not that they weren't there before, but it's creating a different element in the cuisine. So we are always evolving. Caribbean cooking cuisine is a very unique, we bring a very unique approach to it. It's layered because of actually the history of the Caribbean, all the various groups that would have passed through and would have left their mark in different ways, and the ability to create what was brought, also to take it to another level.
Being the only female chef this season, what is that like in the world of cuisine? I mean, is it difficult to navigate that? Is it kind of a male-dominated field?
It is, it still is. It's, as I said, it's ironic because it comes from the grandmothers and the aunts and, you know, the traditional matriarchs that literally led the kitchens and sometimes still do lead that kitchen with the traditions and what we know as Caribbean cuisine, which comes out of Caribbean cuisine, is anchored in our women. A lot of the women had large families, and it was, how do I take these simple ingredients and create interest for my kids? I have a lot of kids, and you know kids, I don't want to eat the same thing over and over again. How do I take this on a budget and feed the soul as well as provide nutrients and bring about happiness and camaraderie, because I'm breaking bread with a group and I want them to feel good, nourished on many different levels. Hats off to those women, my grandmothers and other grandmothers and other aunties and tanties and matriarchs that brought that to the table.
Chef Debbie Sardina comes from the beautiful Twin Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. She is the first female executive chef for the Hiltons anywhere in the Americas, and you won't want to miss how she did it.
My mother said that, I'm going to give your CV to somebody in Trinidad and have them look at it and we'll see what comes out of it. And sure enough, I got a call and I did an interview in Washington, D.C. Out of that came, yep, we want you to come on board as a sous chef. And I did cross-training at the Drake Hotel and in Puerto Rico and Chicago. And everywhere I went, they said, if you don't take her back to Trinidad, we are going to take her. And they said, no, we are definitely taking Debbie back to the Hilton Trinidad. I went in as a sous chef. And then my chef left and I was presented with the position and I became the first executive female chef for Hilton Internationals and the Americas at that time. So yeah.
Farming is beautiful.
Every day when we walk out the house and we see the growth, we're proud of it.
My name is Susie Richardson Armas.
My name is David Armas.
And this is how far. I hope you enjoy it.
Avocado is the best, not only because it tastes good, but all the good nutrients that you're getting from it.
We are providing avocado fresh from Florida to your home.
Many avocados already.
What bitter means to me, it means respect. Trust in the process. It might rough now, but go on push, brother. So when them say bitter, that just mean life I get better. Campari, respect the bitter. Over 18 years or older to drink responsibly.
I'm very, very excited to experience Chef Deborah's interpretation of Trinidadian food because she's mixing it up and making it very, very exciting, putting some new twists on there. I've never experienced it before. I've been to Trinidad a few times. I have some Trinidadian friends, but everybody has their own interpretation, so I'm super excited. I'm very, very interested in seeing what she's doing in the kitchen.
Today you have a couple of things. So Trinidad and Tobago has two major groups. We have the Indian and the African, but we also layered with other groups as well. We have Syrian, we have Asian, we have the Spanish, we have the English. So all of that sort of melts together. But to present the two major groups, I am doing some appetizers that represent our Indian influence, and it's sahina and pulori with a choka, which is a fire-roasted eggplant. So we start off with what we would call home dasheen leaves. The quickest thing in terms of similar texture would be collard greens. It has that hardiness to it. So what I've done is you just cut it in thin strips, as we've done, and you want to blanch it. When we are using the dasheen or the taro or the elephant leaf, what you want to do when you cut it like this is you squeeze a fresh lime. Why? Because it has a tendency to scratch your skin and the lime cuts through that. So we're going to blanch this and then we're going to put all the dried ingredients together to make this batter. So let's get started. I'm starting with all-purpose flour, split peas powder, a little bit of baking powder, salt, some dried yeast, turmeric powder, or in the islands we call it saffron powder, just a pinch, and some ground cumin seeds, which we've toasted and then we've sort of just ground it up a little bit. And if you could smell the smells in front, it smells wonderful. I am going to also add a little bit of diced onions to this, and I'm just going to mix this together. You want to give it a good toss to make sure that all the ingredients are nicely mixed in. Set this aside, and again, what we're going to do is we're going to blanch this. Because the leaf is a very hardy leaf, you want to be able to pour a little bit of boiling water over it and set it aside for about 3 minutes. So we're going to do that. You just want to add enough water to cover. And again, at this point, if you're using the dasheen bush leaf or the taro, you want to squeeze your lime in it so that it kills that scratchiness that comes when we're mixing it together in the bowl. Visiting the Port of Spain market in Trinidad with my father, and that was a Saturday routine. And in that process, something for me clicked, and it wasn't just about going to the market and getting the normal items. It was about just feeling the vibes, understanding the smells and the sights and the songs and the vendors yelling and looking at the colors of the chutneys and the fruits. It all did something to my soul. Right, so we've had this blanched, and it's a lovely green color, but it also helps in the cooking time. What you want to do is literally squeeze out the excess water in it, add it to the dry mixture. Why am I doing that? Because I want to be able to coat the leaves really, really nicely. And in Trinidad and Tobago, we have quite a bit of wonderful Indian delicacies. This is just the dot. We have our traditional, well, you want to say breakfast. It started off as a breakfast meal, but it's now an all-daytime meal called the doubles, which is a fried bara, which is a light bread that has chickpea or chana with a variety of sauces. We have this, which we call sahina, and we have palori, we have baigani, and the list goes on and on.
But when you go to Trinidad today, the flavors of everyone that helped to make that island is evident in everything that we eat. If you meet someone from India and they have a Trinidadian and Tobago style curry, they know that there is something different about that curry that is missing from a traditional Indian curry.
So on any given day on the street side, you would be able to pretty much find a cart that sells this nice and hot, being fried with a variety of chutneys and full of wonderful flavors. So now that we've mixed this in nicely and the leaves are sort of coated a little bit with the flour, I am going to add some water, and then we want to be able to allow it to rest and double in bulk.
It's a little controversial to say, but I do believe that we are the street food capital of the Caribbean. I'll say that. Trinidad is a very eclectic and diverse place, definitely because it's an intersection of many cultures. So we have a large Chinese population, Indo-Caribbean population, African, Portuguese, and Arawak Indian. So that fusion definitely comes out in our food.
Now, excuse me, but I am going to use my hands traditionally. I need to feel how I mix in. You want to be able to get your hands in and allow a little bit of a kneading process where you're allowing the leaves to be absorbed into the water and coated. See, it's nicely coming into a ball. And we're going to allow this to rest. Now, the texture on this, as you can see, is fairly thick because when we're getting ready to fry, we're going to fry them into little patties. And normally you cut it open and stuff it with all those wonderful sauces and chutneys. So this is the sahina, and we're going to put it aside to rest. Now, our second fritter for you is what we call palori. And palori is a light fritter that also is served with different chutneys. We're starting off with all-purpose flour, some split peas, and I would say that, this is more of a traditional recipe, so the split peas content is about a 50% ratio, but there are some vendors that would probably do a little bit of less, or maybe even you don't even get much split peas. But this is really from a nutritional point of view that we have it complete vegan. I've just added some turmeric powder, I'm adding some salt, some ground cumin, baking powder, and yeast, and it's as simple as that. You're going to take a whisk and just make sure that all of the dried ingredients are nicely combined. And we're going to just slowly add enough water to bring it together and then to create a really wet dough. And then when you get to this point, you really do need to, this is one of those things that you really want to just get in there with your hands to feel it, because the whisk is not going to give you that consistency that you're looking for, and you may miss the window. So you take your hands and you just basically work the dough just slightly, adding water a little bit at a time. It's just to sort of bring it in, and you see how the consistency of the batter is changing. It's a wetter batter, and you're going to allow this to sit and rest so that at the end of the day, it also doubles in size, and you're going to get a really nice product at the end. Both parents have a different approach to how they do what they do. They run a little restaurant in Tobago, but my father's approach to this is what I call a vibration cook. So he cooks from instincts, what my grandmother would have taught him and what he would have learned. My mom was more of the, what I would call the cookbook, by the book, following the recipes and showing the formulas worked. And then you could always tweak it, but don't approach it without following the recipe and being structured in terms of the cost and all of those dynamics. So there was always this little tug of war, but I grew up with the best of both worlds, and that's both sides of who I am. And choka is normally some sort of vegetable from Trinidad and Tobago, primarily eggplant or melangen as we call it. And we even do tomatoes, and we could do pumpkin choka, but pumpkin is not fire roasted. It's just cooked down, melted down in a pot. But today I'm going to use eggplant, and this is a Florida eggplant. It cooks a little bit different to our eggplant. It's a little hardier, so it's going to take a little bit more time, but the fire roasting of this gives such a rich flavor. What I would love to do is suggest that you cut slits into the eggplant. So you put a little bit of a slit on top and bottom. Why are we doing this? We are going to put a couple cloves of garlic in it. So you just want to take a whole garlic and just lightly kind of cut it into thirds. You use your index thumb, and you're going to have to apply a little pressure, but we are going to get a little bit where that insert is, and we're going to put that garlic piece or clove right into it. When this is fire roasting, the flavors that come out of it is exotic and rich and deep. It gives such a great flavor. The water from the eggplant sort of gets a little bit more concentrated, and you end up with a rich eggplant flavor. So this is very important. And the fire roasting on this is absolutely exquisite. So what you do is, if you do have even a barbecue, over barbecue that you have a hot fire, you just want to be able to place your eggplant and just allow that fire to really roast. It's going to take anywhere from, say, 20 minutes to half an hour. You don't want it too high, but you want to create that roasting technique. You're going to have to turn it several times, looking at the top and the bottom, and allowing it to really come in nicely charred and soft. When the inside is nice and soft. Hey,
how are you? This is really cool. So what's going on right here?
I have ahead of time one eggplant that has already been, now look at the char on this. It's really nice and deep. So what you want to do is you want to cut in the very center, and you want to open it up. Now we have all this lovely flesh, excuse me, and what you're going to do is you're going to take a spoon, and at the very top we would have cut off the top of the eggplant, and we're going to just take and literally with a little bit of a pressure apply with a spoon and allow the eggplant is going to separate itself. The flesh of the eggplant is going to separate itself from the actual skin. See some lovely little pieces of whole garlic that were roasted in there. And we're going to basically take off the chard, take the back of the chard, and you're going to have a couple little pieces of some of the skin, but that all adds a wonderful depth to the flavor. So you can do this with several eggplants ahead of time, and just, when you're ready to entertain, you have this in your fridge, and then we move on to the next phase, which is what we're going to do now.
Awesome. And of course, remember, check out the QR code if you want to check out these recipes. That's something you can easily do at home too, right?
Very much so. Easy, entertaining.
All right, so I know you're busy, you have a lot going on here, so I'm going to leave you alone, but we're going to check back in with you in a bit.
Great. Looking forward.
Life is precious. Good health is priceless. We recognize it, value it, and it's our utmost focus at Primary Medical Care. Unexpected illness will emerge. Injury will occur, which will cause you to put your life on pause. No worries. Our doctors and our entire care team will be available for you every step of the way. Your health and well-being goes beyond the physical body. Peace of mind is what you'll get after visiting Primary Medical. We listen to you, and we are here for you.
So now we're going to get on to our eggplant choka, as I spoke about. So let's get started, okay? So we're going to put in a little bit of oil in the bottom of the pan. We're going to add our minced garlic. and allow that to come in a nice golden brown with a little bit of onions. Some nice chopped onions. And you want to continually stir till the onions become translucent and the garlic has a nice golden nutty brown, because that releases a lot of oils and flavors. It really gives that oomph, as we call it in Caribbean cooking. So you're stirring because you don't want it, you just want to be able to allow it to get it. And if you can only smell the flavors in here, it is wow. So we are moving along really nicely, medium-high heat, stirring. And we've had our eggplant that we've pulverized either in the food processor or by hand. We're adding that nicely to this. And I'm going to finish off with a little bit of jeera or cumin seeds that have been parched. And you want to add just a tad of water so that the consistency becomes a little bit wetter. And for those of you that like a little heat, you can always finish with a little bit of Scotch bonnet finely minced. Okay, so our eggplant is done and we're going to move on to the fritters, which is the final step of this meal. And we talked about the sahina, which we would have doubled in size, so it's nice and light and airy. And we also have our pylori. Now there are two different ways of putting this together. The sahina is a little bit thicker, so you want to take a little bit of oil and rub it in the palm of your hands. Take up a little knot or a little ball, and you're going to roll it and create a tiny flat disc. This we're going to add into our oil. And you want to add, the oil is not to be on high. You want to be able to allow it to take its time and cook through on both sides. And it's going to puff up a little bit on you. If you look, you can see that we're getting a really nice little air pocket here happening, a nice little pillow-like. And I've turned it over, and we're going to turn it over a couple of times just to get it nice and golden brown on both sides so that it's cooked through. You just want to stir them, flip them on both sides, getting them nice and golden brown so that it's an even cooking time on both sides and that they're cooked through. While that is happening, what I'd like to do is move on to the pylori. The pylori is a wetter dough. So you have two options. One is to use a small scoop and put it into, it has a little bit more oil, it's a little bit more of a deep frying. So you're basically using the ball and drop it. And I'm going to take them out of the pan. Pylori just has a couple more seconds. So we're just stirring it around to make sure that it's fully cooked. And I'm going to take out the pylori. Okay, so let's get organized for plating. Okay, I'm bringing over my sahina.
Hey, Chef Debbie, how's it
Hi,
going?
how are you? Just in time?
Yes! We got the pylori. I'm excited about this. This is one of my favorite Trinidadian, little snacks. Yes, I love it. So I was waiting for this.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little bit of the eggplant.
Okay. Wait, what are we doing with the eggplant exactly, though?
So this is choka. So we have, it's like dips. You have tamarind chutney, you have mango talcary, you have eggplant. So these are some options, almost like a Trini mezza.
I love it.
Right, so that you have options with the fritters. We have the sahina.
And of course, this is some of the Indian influence here, right?
This is definitely our Indian influence.
Yes.
You have the pylori, which are these light, lovely little pillows, I like to call them.
Yeah, it's so fluffy.
Correct. What you've tasted pylori before?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. All right, so we have that.
I love pylori, doubles, I love it all.
Okay, I'm just gonna drizzle a little bit of olive oil on it just to give it a nice little extra thing.
Nice.
And put a little bit of tomatoes. You know, chefs, we like our little colors going on.
It's so pretty.
And a little bit of microgreens. So you have a lovely little selection.
We can, of course, I can try this though,
yes,
right?
You can.
Okay. I'm gonna try this because this is the one you had to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Use a different ingredient, right?
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, open it up.
Open it.
And just kind of give a good dunk in the tamarind sauce.
All right.
So that you get that nice and crunchy.
This is good. Again, of course, you can try this at home. Remember that QR code, so make sure to click on the QR code to get all of these recipes. I love this.
Try your mango.
All right. I just dip? Yeah, you're definitely experiencing the flavors. It feels like, is there a little curry in here too, or?
What you're tasting is amchar masala, which is a lot of different spices with some scotch bonnet, and it gives a lot of depth to the mango.
Yeah.
And garlic and shadow benny, which gives a wonderful flavor. And then on the tamarind, you have our sweet tamarind sauce with, of course, some brown sugar and some cumin and some hot pepper. So you're getting two different flavors. There's always a sweetness because of heat and the balance, the yin and the yang, but it really does fill out nicely, and you have to get a little dunk on that chuka.
Gotta get a little bit of that. I really do like the sweet and the salty together. Let's try this.
And there's a deep roasted, fire roasted flavor, right? Takes eggplant to another level.
All right, guys, you know the drill. While Chef is in the kitchen cooking, we want to check in with the Louis Estrada, the Chef of Spirits. How are you feeling this evening?
Feeling great.
Yeah, so I'm excited. We have a heavier dish tonight that the chef is in the kitchen making right now.
We do. Chef Debbie is making a stewed oxtail dish for us tonight. So I created something that's true to form and something that reminds me of the islands today. So we created a jungle bird cocktail.
Jungle bird. Yeah. Ooh, that sounds exciting.
So the jungle bird cocktail is 5 components. We have the Appleton Estate Jamaican rum.
Shout out to Jamaica.
Shout out one. We have the Campari, which is a nice bitter note to it.
Yeah.
And then we're finishing it off with some fresh pineapple juice.
Okay, I love it. It sounds very refreshing.
All right. So let's go ahead. We're using 3/4 of fresh lime juice. We're gonna balance that out with 3/4 of simple syrup.
And see, this is the science behind it right here.
This is, you just want to find balance in a cocktail.
Yeah.
So this is what we're creating here. We get vanilla notes from our friends in Jamaica. So we're doing 2 ounces of Appleton Estate. We're gonna bring in the Campari, 3 1/4 ounces. And then 2 ounces of our fresh pineapple juice.
So the Appleton Estate and the Campari, those are 2 different rums, or?
No, so Campari is just a different liqueur. It's a bitter liqueur.
Got it.
And then we're gonna go ahead and shake this.
That's one of the most exciting parts.
It is. All right, this is gonna give you some vibrant colors. You're gonna get the red notes from the Campari, the fresh pineapple juice. You know, we're making it festive today. And there is our jungle bird cocktail.
Our jungle bird. Okay, you sold me on it. Can I taste it?
I mean, it's all yours.
I love it. I love it. I'm
Cheers.
excited. Oh, yeah, this is good. This is good. All right, if you want the recipe, check out our QR code. Stay tuned, though. We have a wonderful conversation coming up. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you in a bit.
A Campari, what bitter means to me, it means respect. Yeah, Fry, you a top man. Respect the bitter with the real top brand. So when them say bitter, that just mean life I get better. Respect the bitter. Must be 18 years or older to drink responsibly.
It's about culture, good vibes, and gathering around the table. Our culture is rich, our food is flavorful, and our people are friendly.
It was sitting with family again because as Caribbean people, we are one big Caribbean collective family.
When we gather around the table, we celebrate milestones.
I'm familiar with Chef Debbie and certainly some of the people that she has been able to feed.
We laugh until we cry, and we create memories that last a lifetime. Good food brings people together.
It's the season finale and I'm super excited because this is the first time I've actually ever tasted Chef Deborah's food.
Food is love. It's comfort. It reminds us of our roots. Caribbean nations have long been celebrated for our food. The flavors are bold, the colors are vibrant, and the dishes are hearty. There's nothing quite like it because there is nothing quite like us. Welcome to the Caribbean Cookout Show.
I'm doing an oxtail stew, and I am elevating it a little bit by stuffing the dumplings with sweet potato and pigtail. This is now premium. Oxtail is no longer considered on the bottom of the ladder, it's up on the top. We are going to do stew oxtail, slowly braised, but we're going to do it how we do it in Trinidad and Tobago. So basically what we are going to do, we're going to start with seasoning our oxtail. And this is something that you can do the night before. So in the Caribbean, we love our meats to be really full of flavor and seasoned nicely. This is what we would call green seasoning, and what it is basically it's a broadleaf thyme that we get in the Caribbean. I brought it with me to Miami. It has pimentos, which is our local flavoring pepper. It doesn't give heat, and you make a little bit of onion, garlic, and the Spanish thyme and the pimentos. I'm gonna add some ginger, fresh ginger to that, and I'm gonna put a little bit more onions because I love that flavor, and a little bit of salt. Now, this is something that, again, we need to kind of massage that meat, get in with your hands, make sure it's nicely coated. And at this stage, you can marinate it and leave it overnight in the refrigerator. So it really pulls on those flavors. And then the next day, we're ready for our stewing process. Stewing involves taking cane sugar and brown sugar, roughly a 50-50 ratio, and putting it in our pot. So we put a little bit of our brown sugar, and then you put a little bit of cane sugar. In the olden days, we would put a little bit of oil in the pot as well to help to speed up. But today, we're looking at lighter food, but still packing the Caribbean flavor. And so I do not put any oil in my pot. I allow the sugar to caramelize, and it still does a great job minus the oil. It's going to move from just a melting stage to a slight bubbling stage, and then the sugar is going to start to turn in color to really dark. And it's really important you catch it at the right time, because if it's too dark, it becomes bitter. So we're looking for caramelized, and if it's not bubbling enough, then it's too sweet. So it's finding that right little niche. So you can see that it's actually starting to change. We see a light bubbling happening. It's caramelizing. If you look, you can see, and even the smell is changing. This is the perfect time to add in, slowly add it in. And just really slowly stir it around so that the caramelization of the sugars can coat on to the meat. See that color? It's changing color, it's browning nicely. Ooh, and it's smelling good. So it's really nice and caramelized and brown, and we're gonna add our beef stock, cover with beef stock, and allow it to simmer until tender. So you can't have Caribbean cuisine without some pigtail as well. And being a chef, you're always trying to raise the bar. So the raising of the bar is we have dumplings, which is definitely all over the Caribbean, but I'm gonna stuff it today with a little bit of sweet potato, right? Or yam for Miami, but sweet potato back home. And what we do is we actually boil the pigtail, which is what we're looking at. Take the meat off of the bone, right, once it's tender. This takes, you can do it in a pressure cooker or you can cook it boiling water. What I would suggest is you throw off the water a couple times so you get that salt content out and you cook it until tender, simmering nicely. We then have the finished meat that we've sort of pulled off of the bone and we've finely diced. And I've made what we call our dumpling dough, which is basically flour with a little enough water, flour and water, and you want to be able to have a soft, pliable dough, right? You need it, you could leave it to rest, we say for about 20 minutes or so, just to allow that gluten to settle. And we have a story in Tobago that says when you knead a dumpling with a left hand, you have a left hand dumpling, that man ain't going nowhere. So I did not need the dumpling with left hands today, I needed the dumplings with both hands, okay? So we roll it out on a rolling pin. And I already have some already cut in circles, which we are going to fill. In this bowl, I'm adding some soft yam that has been mushed already, really soft, mashed nicely. And I'm adding some pigtail. You could be very liberal with it, or you can add a little bit, but we're going in deep today. We're going in. We want that lovely pigtail flavor to come out. You can make your dumplings larger. You can make your dumplings a little thicker. I like them a little dainty. So I'm just putting a small scoop in the center. And then I'm gonna turn them over. This dough is soft, so all you really want to do is just take your hands and just gently apply a little pressure at the ends, folding it over. Okay, so now we're gonna put our dumplings into rolling boiling water. Giving it about 3 to 5 minutes, it's gonna come up to the top. When it floats up to the top, it tells you that it's done and ready for plate up. We've talked about the dumplings and we have one last element to put on the plate, and we are gonna talk about chow. So let's get ready to talk about chow. Making a chow, which is, we do mango chow, pineapple chow. It's like a little pickled with lots of acidity, a little shadow beni, which would be like culantro or cilantro, which is a little more delicate. And we put a little sugar and Scotch bonnet and a little garlic and allow that to marinate a little bit. So you get a little kick, but you get some sweetness and you have the acidity. What happens with the chow is you let it sit for at least a half an hour so that it pulls on all of those flavors, and you can eat it straight up, unadulterated, with when you're drinking, you know, beer and you're drinking, you're liming, as we say in Trinidad. You're gonna have some chow on the beach or by the river, or in this case, we're gonna add it as an element to this dish to bring about a little bit extra depth. And what we basically wanna do, we just wanna mix it all together and allow it to sit and marinate. And we're good with this. Can't get simpler than that, and it's gonna pack a punch. So let's finish up. Okay, so we're gonna get ready to plate up this wonderful meal. We have our pickled chow, which has been sitting for a little while. We have our oxtail stew. It just smells great in here. And we have stuffed dumplings, so let's put it all together. So we start with our stuffed pigtail dumpling. So you just want to finish with a little splash of rum at the end. So we're going to do that, a little splash. Mouth is watering, nice and tender and juicy. Yum, yum, yum. And to finish off, we're gonna top it with a little bit of this wonderful pickled chow to give you that lovely Caribbean identity or Trinbagonian identity. And there you have it. Voila.
At the end, we'll sit down, break some bread, and have expressive conversations. So join us for the Caribbean Cookout Show and discover the magic of Caribbean cuisine.
Farming is beautiful.
Every day when we walk out the house and we see the growth, we're proud of it.
My name is Susie Richardson Armas.
My name is David Armas.
And this is how far. I hope you enjoy it.
Avocado is the best, not only because it tastes good, but all the good nutrients that you're getting from it.
We are providing avocado fresh from Florida to your home.
What bitter means to me, it means respect. Trust in the process. It might rough now, but go on push, brother. So when them say bitter, that just mean life I get better. Campari, respect the bitter. Over 18 years or older to drink responsibly.
I'm just getting a chance to get to know her, and I'm really excited about trying her cooking today. I know she's at Trini, so I know it's going to be delicious, and I love that she plays with a lot of flavors from what I've seen on social media.
Going to be great conversation, a lot of laughs because Trinis don't take anything seriously. I mean, when we have to, but we're a very happy people, and we always have a story, particularly about food and those people that prepared it for us.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cookout Show. This is what it's all about. Good company, of course. Good drinks, yes. Cheers. And
cheers
some
to the
good
jungle
food,
bird.
yes. Cheers. All right, so tonight we're surrounded by Trinis, right? We got some Trinidadian food. We have Simeon here, though, representing for Bahamas. Representing for the Bahamas. But let's dive into this dish. I know we have a couple courses. This is the first one. So what are we eating?
So you're eating a couple of the Indian influences in Trinidad. We have sahina, which is a fritter. It normally will be served with dasheen, but we've used collard greens today to give us that texture. We have pulori balls, which is another fritter. And then in front of you, you have a little bit of mango tal curry. We have eggplant choker, and we also have tamarind sauce. So bon appetit. Thank you.
Nice.
I was already there.
And your thoughts?
Yes, I'm not missing the dasheen. I think it is a great substitution if you're doing this in the US. My relationship with Caribbean food is, I think, physical, but also very spiritual. So, you know, Caribbean food is accessible anywhere, particularly if you're in a place in somewhere like the United States where there are big communities of the community in New York, in the South, to be able to not only get what you need for it by way of dasheen or even the collard greens. So great substitution.
And it gives us some texture as well in terms of.
Absolutely. First and foremost, I've never eaten sahina or a pulori with a fork. So this is a first.
I know. I just copied her. I watched, and I was like, oh, I reached with my hands, and then I was like, wait a minute.
I am using my manners.
These are classic
Manners with a Z.
Yes. Food is a love language, right? And I feel like Caribbean people of all know how to talk to things. We definitely know how to show our love through food. My relationship to food, I wish I could say that I had a better relationship in terms of being able to do a lot of cooking, but I like to call myself the harvester. Classic Trini street foods, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to be on my best behavior, but I wanna lick this plate because it's delicious.
But see, that's the thing. Why can't street foods be served in this way, right? That's what it's all about.
And this is reminding me of a little bit of a Middle Eastern flavor here. Tell us about the eggplant.
It's the eggplant choker, and it has jeera or cumin in it, but it's roasted. It was fire roasted, so you're gonna get a little bit of that similar, that type of Middle Eastern flavor, but it's based on our choker.
Chef Debbie, what I also like is, I like that everything was separated on the plate, but interestingly enough, I think because of the way you plated it maybe also, I was able to kind of savor and taste every one of those ingredients, specifically the tamarind and then the eggplant, and then you're tasting the ingredients also in the tahina. So everything plays really well together. It's a great Trini street food starter dish. Elevated, of course.
Absolutely.
Is this all vegetarian?
Yes, it is.
Oh, wow.
It just shows how much flavor you can get from a vegetarian appetizer as well.
So I think what tonight's dinner also represents is that when you go to someone's house in Trinidad, it's not that, let's say they're from an Indian background, you're only going to get this. You can get whatever we ate today, probably with the exception of the meat in some houses, depending on if the house is Muslim or of Hindu faith. But you can go to anyone's house and get pulori. You can go to anyone's house and get sweet tamarind sauce. Well, I'm gonna do this.
Thank you. Hello.
I don't know what y'all was doing the whole time.
Because I've never eaten a pulori in my life with a fork. I'm like, my mother would disown me. How is it?
Yes, fluffy, light. For me, pulori has to be pudding in the middle, like very lovely in the middle, but crunchy on the outside. And this, absolutely, listen to it.
I love, first of all, the reaction when I watch people react to food. Food has a way of transcending and bringing feelings and emotions and memories. So I always love when people start to get into what it reminds them of, what these flavors bring back to their memory. And that's what the language of food does.
Now for me, I'm not a Trinidadian food connoisseur. Help me understand, the mango is a...
Mango talcary, we call it. So it's normally when mango's in season, green mango, we cut it up, seed and oil, and then we blanch it, throw off that water, and then with amcha masala and different spices, cook it down with a little bit of sugar, and that's what you're tasting. And it really complements, Indian cuisine, whether it be vegan or good curry chicken or good curry goat. It really gives a nice balance to that sweet and spicy.
I'm not well versed in Trinidadian cuisine, so it was very, very enlightening. And then not only that, she had support from her table sous chefs because they were very, very engaged. So how much does the Indian influence and culture and persons, Trinidadians, how much does that
weigh in on our cuisine?
Yeah.
It weighs in very heavily. It's very much a part of the whole fabric of our cuisine, a very strong part. And so you'll find it in breakfast foods as doubles. You'll find a wrap, almost what I would say similar for people to understand, a burrito wrap, but curry chicken and potato and chana in it. And then we would have that for lunch, or you could have paratha, which is another flatbread or bus-up shot. So we take that and we literally bust it up. So it looks like a bust-up shirt, but we call it bus-up shot, right? So that is served again. So there's that cuisine definitely is cemented in our overall Trin-Begonian cuisine. We have other groups, and so African as well is a very strong part. And the next course is we're going to talk a little bit about that influence in terms of the two major groups. Just to give you, this is just a taste of what Trinidad has to offer.
So how much is there any difference between Trinidadian and
Tobagonian food? Tobagonian food is a little bit more heavy on the heavier side. A lot of the African influence comes in, so our ground provisions, and I want to say Tobagonians love pork, so like stew pork is very much a staple, fish as well, curry crab and dumpling. So you have some really, it lends itself more to the heavier cuisine, but it definitely is a little bit different to the Trinidadian side, yes.
I think this is a great highlight and a kickoff, again, as a starter plate, but also a great highlight and celebration of the Indian side of Trinidadian cooking, and really highlighting how all of the different spices, because you can really taste the spices from the amchar masala, again, to the tahina. I really got a chance to kind of get a little flavor, a touch of each flavor in each bite, and it really highlights. If you were going to Trinidad, for the first time and you had never been and you wanted just a real awesome sampler
This
of
plate would be fantastic.
Yes, of the Indian, inspiration behind Trinidadian cooking, this would definitely be a great highlight.
So you were talking about Indian influence. Is this something you can get in India as well, or is this specifically Trinidadian?
It's melted into our cuisine.
Okay.
The starting point would be Indian based, but it has become that Trini influence has, because then you get into what's in my backyard, what do I have to use, and then you make it so it is adapted. You would find flatbreads and rotis and different breads similar to that in India, but Trinidad has its own spin on it. We are a voice on many levels, not just food, culture, and it goes beyond that to say that we are here and we can contribute and we have things that matter in terms of what we represent for our cuisines.
All right, time for round 2.
Oh my word.
Chef, you had us at oxtail.
But this looks fancy. This is not my grandmother's oxtail.
You have to taste it.
Yes.
And then you're gonna tell me about it.
My favorite moment really was the presentation of that oxtail because it was beautiful. There was even like a hint of mango in there that I wasn't expecting.
So we had a conversation. I haven't even gotten mine yet, and it smells so incredible.
Too bad, so sad.
Yeah, it's kind of what we were talking about. Different countries sometimes fight over different dishes, right? I know Jamaica loves them some oxtail, right? So when I think of oxtail, I don't always associate it with Trinidad.
Right, but the thing about it is, this is called a Caribbean cookout show. So while we're focusing on Trini, the technical side of it is stew, which is traditional Trini, the way that we did the stew. But we do eat a lot of oxtail in Trinidad as well, and it's something that we can relate to. And I tell you that today, this pot bubbling throughout the whole day, so many people have been like, I like oxtail. So I know we hit the spot on the oxtail.
And is this dumpling? What is
Well,
this?
you're gonna cut into that dumpling, and then I'm gonna tell you what you're eating.
Delicious. What I love immediately.
What are you tasting?
Is there pumpkin in there?
It's yam, but it would be sweet potato. Back home, what we would use our sweet potato, and it has pigtail in it as well.
Immediately, I noticed that the oxtail, by the way, is just falling off the bone. I don't even need a knife.
That dish in particular is just about a memory, about me sitting at the table, this homemade table that my grandpa made with this wax fruit kind of tablecloth, and the bugs being attracted to the lights and the lizards trying to eat the bugs while we're also eating dinner. And it's just that happy memory of two people that totally validated every creative bone in my body. I was gonna ask about your seasoning because in the Caribbean, the before the cooking, the pre-seasoning.
Well, we have green seasoning in this. We have pimentos in it. It really is a Trini. That's where we're talking about Trini to the bone. Yes. No pun intended. But it was really to get those flavors in the oxtail. Traditional stew with the green seasoning and the pimentos and the garlic and a little ginger.
And maybe for those at the table that aren't familiar with green seasoning, everyone's green seasoning has a secret ingredient, but what will you share about yours?
So traditionally, green seasoning, as you know, back home would be a combination of what we would call a flat Spanish thyme, and that gives that flavor base a very unique flavor, and pimentos, which is our flavoring pepper. It's not hot, but it has a very distinctive flavor. Yeah. And for me, that is the base, because the garlic and the onions, what you put in, and the fine thyme and scallion or chive also layers it. But to me, the two main components would be the pimento and the Spanish thyme, as we call it, which is unique to Trinidad. Yeah. And so that's what makes this dish so traditional, because green seasoning was brought to the table today by Trinidad.
Oh, wow.
To really give you an authentic taste of the island.
And typically how long do you season something like this?
I like to season my meat and let it sit overnight, because then you really get down to the bone. But what trick with the pressure cooker is that it allows some of that flavor to go in. So this kind of helped in the whole process of getting that flavor.
I don't know a Trinidadian household that doesn't have a pressure cooker, right? Especially on a Sunday, you could just hear that thing.
You would hear it, My grandmother, peas would be...
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a staple.
Chef, who's your culinary hero?
My culinary hero was my grandmother to begin with.
Love it.
That lady could cook. We used to call her Sweet Finger Mama.
Wow.
And literally, you would literally be fingers all on. And then after that would be my dad, because my dad has a really strong understanding of food. And then after that would be chefs. But it came from being within that environment, being exposed to that love and passion for food. So those would be my first go-to, and then I would get into the chefs.
For me, this dish is like my carnival experience.
Yes.
I like to play with a band that is about moving carnival forward, but still keeps the tradition. Yes.
I love that.
So you get this at the lunch park, for sure.
So you see how you have moved oxtail forward because I asking you if you put Trini ketchup in this and da-da-da-da-da, right?
So I know we were talking about just elevating and, the growth of, or the changes of cuisine in Trinidad as well. And you mentioned Venezuela, right? The influences there?
Well, we have Venezuelans coming back into Trinidad.
Coming back?
Yeah, not that they weren't there before.
Okay.
But there was like a lull, and now obviously for the reasons that they feel they need to get to or out of Venezuela, Trinidad is very close, and therefore we are seeing much more Venezuelans, and they're bringing cuisine as well. So empanadas and things that we would have known, but it's becoming part of street food. We see it popping up a little bit more on their cheeses, and just having that as an option, and really great option because it's authentic.
Yeah.
I think it's becoming a mainstay, and the Trinidadians, we've gravitated to it. I love it, and a lot of people love and get it. So we're getting in there, and we'll see where that goes. What sort of creative juices will take that and make it into something different.
So for me, being at this table with you ladies is so important, because for me, tables like this are where decisions are made and not obeyed.
Mm-hmm.
So, being able to talk and to create so that we can influence is so important.
True.
So for me, my biggest question for you is, what's next in terms of your legacy of connecting women, especially young women, to take on the role that you had before,
Right.
and being leaders, executives, and decision makers for us in the Caribbean?
I think part of what our mandate is, at least for the next year and a half, is just that. That's one layer. It's going to come through different forms. We have a cookbook, and we have some programs that we are working with a couple institutions to bring young girls and boys, but obviously targeting towards the girls, to get into making cooking fun, first of all, having the ability to have some dialogue, using local ingredients, because unfortunately in the Caribbean, across the board, fast foods, we compete a lot with fast foods, and it's not really a healthy option. So it's really having that ability to put them in an apron, dress them up, talk a little bit about and show them. It's a great way to end a very intense but a very rewarding day, sitting around a group of women and a chef as well, a man chef, well represented. And we had great conversation about our cuisine and moving forward with future generations. One of the persons you asked me about who influenced me, but outside of that, I would say the first chef, her name was Sylvia Hunt. And she was a pioneer in Trinidad and Tobago in terms, and I sat one day coming home from school and saw her on TV, and I looked at her and I realized that I could do that. I wasn't thinking chef, but I always loved cooking, but I felt like she's doing this, I could do that too. Right. So that impacted as well, and I think it's important when you get to, as you said, a point of your game where you're on the top, you always have to give back. You always have to look at ways of inspiring. The universe allows certain things to happen, and you've received and you've got to give back as well. Yes. So we have some things in the pipeline, and definitely you will be hearing and seeing more where that is concerned.
Awesome.
I mean, you know, right now, of course, we're on a platform, right? We're on a Caribbean cookout show, so a little girl could be watching you right now. I mean, how does that feel to just think about that type of influence on someone?
It is, again, it's an honor. My daughter, who is in her early 20s, is a chef as well. She was inspired, yep. And so that legacy has already started. And, you know, we talk a lot about those issues as women. And she is very, very gung-ho that in that whole thing of sharing and getting the word out there and showcasing that it is very possible. Any and everything is possible once you believe and achieve. And it is very possible for a very young person out there, a young woman, to be a budding executive chef of her own business.
It was delightful. First and foremost, I feel like the Caribbean community definitely is one collective family. So it was a good chance for us to all get together, even though some of us were meeting for the first time and learning more about Chef Debbie's, you know, journey and also what she's doing next and how she really infuses flavor and how she's really thoughtful about her plating.
All right, I want to raise a glass and say cheers, of course, to Chef Debbie. Thank
you.
all.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you all for being here. And
Thank
cheers
you.
to season 2.
Yes,
thank you.
See you all in Trinidad Carnival.
Yeah.
See you on the road. On your road. Cheers.
Licensing for that.
As our incredible culinary journey through the vibrant world of Caribbean cuisine comes to a close, we want to thank you for joining us. We've met some talented chefs who've shared their passion and unique culinary traditions. We've even witnessed a few surprises along the way. It's been an absolute pleasure guiding you through this flavorful adventure. Remember, the flavors of the Caribbean await you beyond this screen. Keep exploring and savoring the rich culinary delights that this region has to offer. Until our next epic gastronomic adventure, farewell and of course, bon appétit.